Welcome to Chat with Leaders. Our mission is to give resilient servant leaders a platform for sharing the inspiring things that they're doing to lead their teams, customers, and themselves wisely. I'm your host, Chris LaFay, and today I have the pleasure of being joined by Mark Galvin, president and founder of ePresence. Hey, Mark.
Hey, good morning, Chris.
Good morning. So you came out of the hotel business, which you had like 25 years of experience, which is a very high touch, very in-person kind of business.
Oh, yeah.
How did you make that change to a completely remote environment with the business that you're running now?
Yeah, that's a good question. And then I tell you though, even though I'm running a remote environment, I'm operating in still a high touch environment. So my team, I have 8 team members. 3 are in Virginia. I have 1 in Colorado, 1 up in Athens, another one in Decatur here in Atlanta. And we use Teams. So Microsoft Teams is a great way to stay connected. It's a lot like what Slack is done.
That's
What I
what we
like about
use.
Teams, what I like about Teams is it allows us to quickly jump on video because it's incorporated in the system. So instead of having a phone call, we're video conferencing constantly. So that really does shrink that the feeling that we're actually physically in different spaces, and it makes it much easier to convey messaging, understand that someone has a question because they may not actually express the question. So that works as an effective way to make sure your team is as cohesive as possible.
How do you build relationships with people within your team? Obviously, good video communication when everybody's
Yeah.
remote is huge, being able to see people's faces and, the expressions that they're making.
Yeah.
How do you build that relationship within your team?
So building relationships virtually is getting easier and easier because number one, we're getting used to it.
Yeah.
So 20 years ago, this would have been much more difficult than it is today. Now people are embracing it, which helps out a lot. But once you embrace it, you cannot start a conversation with someone like you would in an office environment. I can't walk into an office that you and I are sharing and say, Chris, what's going on with that project?
Yeah.
I need to build into that. So before I jump into something with someone, I'm going to say, hey, how was your day? What's going on? How are the kids? Hey, is your parrot? We have somebody that has a parrot in the room next door. To say, hey, what's the parrot going to mimic today? Try to incorporate a little bit of personal connection with those folks so that there is a relationship there. And honestly, the value for me, because this is my organization, is I want them to feel comfortable with supporting the organization, supporting our mission, and supporting ultimately me, because a lot of the branding comes from me. So doing that has been good. And all the folks, whenever I get on the phone with them or I have something that's either bad news or good news, there's always some sort of rapport that I make sure we build. Not a lot of it, but we definitely build a little bit of rapport, and then we can jump right into the business.
So when you're handling these meetings and you're chatting with your team members, how are you kind of crafting your company culture through your
Ooh.
mission, your vision, et cetera? It's kind of a wide open
Yeah.
question, right?
Yeah. Well, it's a good question. So every time we have a meeting, and I have my mission written right over the top of my desk, and it simply says, we want to provide excellence through social media. So I will start off each of our meetings with that message. We provide excellence in social media. I want everybody to constantly think about that. So I do mention that, but beyond that, it is really that personal, constant interchange. We try to meet frequently, and that's something else that's important. Before the current COVID-19 crisis that we're in, we were meeting once a week. We had I call it a staff meeting.
Mhm.
It's a virtual meeting on Mondays where we'd all get on the phone. We have a 30-minute call. We do some training, always have some training in there. Here's the new thing that's going on. Like, for example, did you hear that Twitter is now allowing all of us to schedule our tweets from the web app? Oh, that's fantastic, right? Natively. So that type of information my team doesn't automatically know or hear. So
Yeah.
we make sure we're sharing good quality training, but we're meeting as frequently as possible as a group, and so we can all banter.
Yeah, that's awesome. We actually do when our contractor team gets large enough, because we have a small team over here, we do a thing called a weekend wrap up. And so what the weekend wrap up is we spend 30 minutes every Friday toward the end of the day Eastern time,
Mm-hmm.
And we close off the week with 30 minutes of just, what were you up to this week? How
Oh,
was
that's cool.
life? How are the kids? How's the husband, wife,
Yeah.
whatever? What household projects are you doing? I actually got hooked into a Netflix series a few years ago because of something one of my team members told me about during those meetings. And it helps with the camaraderie. It helps with, like, we're feeling like we're all together. We're pushing toward the same goals, and we all like each other outside of just talking about, you know, web stuff, if you will.
Right. Oh, absolutely. It's too easy to lose connection today with just people because the technology can get between us. And
Totally.
so figuring out a way to bridge that, like what you're doing, is so, so important. And honestly, people crave it. I don't
Yeah.
care what you're not, what type of personality type you have. We still crave some sort of connection, maybe some lesser than others, and to build that connection. And that's the thing. A lot of people like to work from home because of the convenience, but they don't want to be disconnected from people.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of people who join our company and they don't join full time. They join part time because they want to have some other type of stimuli. We give them that and we allow them to build relationships with other people in the group.
How do you, when you're bringing on new team members into your company, how do you kind of judge those soft skills? Because really, it's some of what I do, a lot of what you do as well.
Yeah.
It's more based on the soft skills. The hard ones, the hard skills are easy to teach.
Right.
But understanding
Yeah.
that's kind of difficult. How do you kind of parse through that?
So I don't, honestly, I don't try to separate them. I'll have, on the hard skill side, I will have them do some work and submit it to me so that I can see the type of work they do beforehand. On the soft skills side, Chris, you know me, we've worked together on some projects. I love to talk to people. I love to ask them questions. So when, like, for example, when you and I first met, we had an even exchange. And if we were not, I would have asked you questions to get you to share some information, and not get you to share. That's right,
Yeah.
really wrong. I am, I'm really interested. I love getting to know people. So
Mhm.
understanding those soft skills side is a little easier because it's more in my sweet spot. If you look at, I'm a big fan of Strengths Finders 2.0. You can buy it online and take the test, and it'll give you what your top skills are. My top skill is communication. So I love to communicate, and so I'll tease that out through conversations with my potential candidates. And yeah, you know what? And if I don't feel like that those soft skills are there, it is easy. I don't feel good about them, right? And as odd as that sounds, it's a feeling for me. If I don't feel like that they're going to be able to carry that, and this is why this is so important. We manage social media for executives. So you're an executive, Chris. We're managing your personal social media for you. If you can't pick up the phone and call your e-publicist and have a conversation with them, you're not going to feel very confident in our abilities. So
Yeah.
all of our team members need to be able to do the social media, but they also have to be able to have a conversation. And when things get tough, as things always do, you
Yes.
know, we post something and you call and say, "Oh my gosh, I hate that team. I can't believe you're posting something about Georgia Tech." I know that works. Um, I can't believe you said that. We shouldn't get defensive. We need to say, "Oh, that's a good point. I'm so glad you've called. Let me take that down." So those types of things are so important. So we have to tease that out early on.
When we were talking a couple of weeks ago about questions with team members, and so you had mentioned something about kind of how you handle different questions when your team members bring up different questions and how you kind of respond to those. I'm kind of curious to hear a little more in-depth thoughts about that.
Good. So we have a member on our team that has a question about everything. Every single meeting, no matter what we do, she's going to ask the question. And and some of it may be in my mind redundant, like, oh, I've already answered this, or she should know this. But what I love about her is that she asks the question. So whenever there is something that comes up, especially in training, she'll end up saying something. And I have had a team member who's a lot more advanced who have kind of done the virtual rolling of their eyes when the question is asked. But
Yeah.
I do say every time she asks a question, I say, you know what? I'm so happy you've asked this, because it will hopefully grease the wheel for everybody to think, okay, let's ask a question. And I want everybody to know, anytime I am willing to have a question thrown at me or somebody will make a statement. And this is something that's happened often. We have just recently moved to Microsoft To Do. We were using Wunderlist before, and we were using project management software, something a lot more elaborate. And we found that just a simple checklist type program that we can share works well. So we had to migrate over. We had a team member that said, I hate Microsoft To Do. She just dropped it like a bomb, said it, dropped the mic and left. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Tell me more. What is it about Microsoft To Do that you're finding as a struggle? Yeah. What is it that you're running into? And you know what? She had legitimate issues, but by her bringing this up in the group and asking questions then to try to expose more of what that data point, what that really looks like, we found out that, all right, some of this we can solve, but some of this we can't. It's kind of like what you do with software, with web development. You probably think you know the answer for some of your clients when they say, I want my website to do X, but you still have to ask the question, why, who's the audience, what are you trying to achieve? And sometimes they're going to say something, you go, oh, okay, well, I was going that way, I need to go that way.
Exactly.
You always got to ask a question, even though you think you know the answer.
Yep. And that it's all about, how are you providing solutions for people and how are you solving problems for people? And that obviously works in the web world, but if team members are trying to figure out and poke holes in what you're doing to make sure that, we as a business are solving problems for people and making lives easier, that's what matters.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good.
So to kind of wrap this up, I like punting it back over to you. What is one thing that you could leave the listeners with, whether it's encouraging, word of advice, etc.?
Good. Well, number one, I like that you said punt. So hopefully there'll be punting in our future, and we'll see some sports back on TV.
Yes.
Besides that, I think that one of the things that I started this year was, and we've all heard this, and so everybody, this is not going to be news, is to, and so I refocused my time this year to read more books, and I find that there's so much energy that I'm getting from these books because they plant ideas in my head that make me realign what I'm doing to maybe be a little more creative. For example, I read a book by Chris Voss. Oh, shoot. Never Split the Difference, as an example. That was a great book to read. And it's talk about negotiations. And I thought that was fantastic. There was another book that gave me this great idea on how to network, where, and I can't remember the author of the book, so I'm not going to bring up that, but I will tell you that if you're going to a networking event, you want to go to a seminar because people are there learning versus a chamber of commerce where everybody is there to try to sell. The seminar, you can make better connections, which makes total sense. But it was great to hear that, and reading something and reading more and more books helps you understand some of these things that you really haven't thought of.
Oh, yeah.
So it does generate more creative juices. So I would encourage that. There's a lot of other things that come to mind, but that right now is probably the best one I can think of.
That's awesome. And what is a good way if people wanted to get in touch with you? What's some good contact information for you?
So I have a universal social media handle. So I have the same handle no matter where you look. It's ePresenceMG. So ePresence, M for Mark, G for Galvin. Or just go to our website, epresence.me. That's epresence.me, because it's all about you.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about. Well, Mark, thank you so much for spending some time with me this morning. I appreciate it. And for all of our listeners, thank you all for tuning in to Chat with Leaders. And now go and be a leader worth following.